understanding of assessing your starting point, guys. We want to look at what is it that could be getting in your way of you achieving your results before you do so. And I'm going to explain why that is important. Some of the cover today is going to be very advanced knowledge. You're going to see things that maybe you've not heard before, connecting some things that you've not heard before. Why is it that I covered this in the very beginning? Why is it that workshop number 2 deep dives into science and things like that? By the way, can you guys let me know that you can hear me now? I think I fixed sound issue, so perfect. Thank you, Patsy. So basically, why is this important? I had a client, and this is many clients. I'm a specific client that made me do this about 8 years ago. She came in and she was fed up. She wanted to change her life. You know, she was tired, probably about 70 pounds overweight. I know she was 70 pounds overweight, not probably. The relationship struggling. There's just so many issues in her life that she was not happy with. And she wanted to come in and make a financial investment to get her. She came in with a traditional thought, right? I need a trainer, I need a nutritionist, and that's what's going to do. I was still a young coach at that time. I was only in my second year, still training back then. And what I was like, okay, cool, let's go 3 times a week. We'll do some metabolic assessments. We'll get your cardio perfect. We'll get your workout perfect. Get your diet perfect. 3 months into this program, she was paying about $2,000 a month, right? It was me and another coach that she was working with. And 3 months into this program, she lost 6 pounds. You still can't hear me. Sound is fixed, guys. Just give it a minute. I'm back on. It should be good. Can you confirm one more time that it's good? Okay, I think she deleted that comment. So anyway, she lost 6 pounds in a matter of 3 months. Well, it may not seem like such a horrible thing, right? But when you spent $6,000 and you lost 6 pounds, pound per $1,000 is not a good deal, guys. And I'll be the first person to kind of raise my hand and say that was a bad deal. So what was happening that time, right? You can imagine she spent $6,000. She's looking at her trainers and her coaches and are going, you guys are ripping me off. You're not doing a good job. You don't know what you're talking about. We're going, wait a minute. We've had a lot of success with people. We've done this system, this process many times over, and we know it works. It's science-backed. So we're going back and forth, blaming each other. And then I got introduced to the concept of hormonal health, of blood testing and digestive tests and stress tests. Thanks for letting me know, Kelly. I got introduced to that concept. So I talked to her about it. I was like, look, could this be going on? And she's like, well, now that you mention it, I don't sleep well. I'm gassy all the time. I'm constipated. I have acid reflux. And, I have no libido. Well, duh. Like, okay, that's something I should have known right away. Not could have done anything with it back then. Now you tell me this, I'm going to go, okay, we got to do this, this, and this before we ever worry about exercise, before we worry about anything that you got to do physically, right? We got to fix the inside. When we train with exercise, guys, when you talk to a trainer, when you talk to a health coach that teaches exercise, we teach you work from the center out. Why? Because the core. I'm going to cover in the next 25 trainings or 23 left after this one, but we'll cover movement and strength and all that stuff because that's one of the 10% fitter. But right now, just understand, right? We start from the center and work our way out. So we start from the core, then we get into our big joints, our hips, our chest, our back, our shoulders, and then we get into the extremities, our joints, right? People get dysfunctional when they start working their arms a lot with a weak core, as an example, right? When you start working on the outside stuff, the extremities, and you don't have a solid foundation in your core, you're going to have problems with pain, with movement, with all those things. Well, the same thing happens with any sort of health transformation. Start from the center. What is the center? Center is your internal health, right? We addressed a little bit of mindset through journals yesterday. And you guys can get those recordings if you're joined, the workshop and you're on this in the workshop. You can see that I already sent that recording this morning with what we covered yesterday. There's also some homework assignments and things like that. If you're not part of that and you want to join, like I said, go to www.perspectiveforce.com/10% fit or register. You'll get the other two and you'll get the future access as well. Or just keep track of my LinkedIn lives and follow 10% free as well. But anyway, so with this client, we did a few assessments, right? Because we figured out we got to fix inside stuff. And after about 2 months of working on internal health, she started losing 10 pounds a month, right? So, and it was so easy and seamless. And I see so many of you guys, I've sat down with people over 5,000 consultations, at least. I'm probably lowballing that number. Over 5,000 consultations in my coaching career, specifically for health. And it breaks my heart all the time to see these people coming in and beating themselves up and being upset with themselves. where it's not your fault. There's things going on the inside of your body. You just don't know. You're not aware of this. So let's kind of talk about that today. We're going to cover symptoms in a second. We'll get to that here shortly. So, right, don't let fear of what could happen make nothing happen, right? So that's kind of that inspiration to start. Leap of faith, another inspiration to start. Like on social media and from a lot of coaches and from a lot of people in general, you're going to see get started, get going. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love that you want to get started. I love that you want to get going. But I've seen this so many times that I consider the behavior change aspect. I consider the mentality of failure. I consider the mentality of starting the wrong way. Because what happens is, if this is a health journey you're going after, Columbus, I appreciate that, man, thanks. If this is a health journey you're going after, what if this is your third, fifth, 10th attempt? And what if this is your body's last shot and you just don't realize it? Your brain's like, one more time, we're going to give this a shot. And you got excited to start, but you didn't plan out how to assess the starting point. You didn't really take what's going on, and you rushed into it too fast. Because the start is always the hardest, but it's the most important, guys. How you start matters. How you start matters to your motivation. If you start the wrong way, you get a few pounds lost, didn't really address the root cause, and you just lost a bunch of water, you got excited, but very quickly that motivation is going to fall. But if you start slower, consistently, you figure out internal health, you create the right expectations along the way, which I'm going to cover in future workshops with goal setting and things like that, but then you're going to be able to have the right expectations for yourself. It means that the milestones that you set are realistic, and you're going to be able to hit them and get more less motivated as the journey goes on. So it takes a little bit more time to start, but it's much more effective. Hi, Kristen. What's going on? Thanks for joining. So moving on, right? We want to make sure that we're not jumping in too soon. I'm not saying not to start, but starting doesn't mean running, biking, running, dieting, all that stuff. First starting is understanding where you're at, right? So that's where we're getting into this next conversation of point of A to B. What does that mean to go from point A to B, right? That's what we typically want to do when we're sitting down, we're creating a plan. We shouldn't create a plan when we're just starting out of going A to Z as you see on the other side. And that's what many of you are doing. You're coming in and you don't understand what are all the components that's got to be fixed. You're going to see, as I discuss symptoms here in a second, you're going to see, wow, these things are a big deal and they need to be addressed. But if you didn't understand that before, you wouldn't have even thought about them. You just start going. You'd have been like, okay, my point B is weight loss. But what if your body can't regulate blood sugar to be able to access fat for fuel accurately or well, right? What if your thyroid is not functioning properly and your body's not burning calories like it should? You're going to break your brain or in your body and your mind trying to get to a destination that you shouldn't have been reaching to, because superseding thing before that. Fix thyroid, fix blood sugar regulation, fix the internal health aspects that are keeping you from seeing results. But many of you are not thinking that way. Most of society is not thinking that way because we don't have enough education with a common consumer. And that's why 10% Fitter is being given away to the world. Because the stuff that I work with is much more deeper than these things. I take this stuff and I apply this with Perspective Force towards organization. But this foundation has to be understood, because if I come in an organization and I start talking about thyroid to their employees about energy while they want me to talk to nutrition, would that go over well? No. But is that what they need? Absolutely. Stress management, all those other things. So anyway, make sure that when you're analyzing your path and you're looking and assessing your starting point, set up your milestones and make sure that the first milestone is A to B, not A to Z. Moving on next, right? So your body speaks to you. Learn to listen. Like, learn to understand what your system is telling you all the time. Our body is so amazing, guys. I can't tell you how amazing our body is. When you start to pay attention, I wrote a post yesterday or 2 days ago, I think it was yesterday, and I was feeling depressed. I was feeling down, right? I was looking at, imposter syndrome creeping in as a leader for my company, right? As a CEO, I'm like, am I the right person, or should one of my people be leading? Had some good counsel from Kevin Ward. If you don't follow Kevin Ward, you definitely do amazing. He's a leadership guru. He's a personal friend of mine. I call him a brother. But anyway, it's not a plug for him. But he counseled me. And then throughout this time, what I did is I sat down and I said, okay, here's how I feel mentally. But is that truly how I feel mentally? Or is that my physiological state being represented in my mental state? That I'm not. So I started looking off what's going on. Okay, it's afternoon. I haven't eaten today. Yes, guys, I'm a health coach. I'm supposed to be perfect, but welcome to the health coaching world. Perfect. Nobody expects perfection from you, but we get away with it because we know how to. But right, so I'm like, I haven't eaten. It looks like I'm going to 7 classes at school, which full schedule is 4. I'm startup right now. I'm also have a side hustle to feed my family while I'm going to school. And on top of that, I have schoolwork, projects, all these things going on, 3 kids, a wife. So a lot is happening. But was I giving that to myself before I was aware of it? No, I was just expecting that I was supposed to feel great. So when I read through these things, I understood physiology is off. So of course my mindset is off. So when I explained it logically like that, my depression, my negativity, those feelings of being down started to subdue and go away. And that was amazing, guys. And that's why I'm sharing this with you, because a lot of times you make it so much harder on yourself. It's not your fault. You just simply don't understand that physiology connects to our mindset, connects to the way we feel. Because before your thought into something that is cognitive for you to understand, it's a chemical reaction that occurs. And thoughts cause chemical reactions, and chemical reactions cause thoughts. So we need to make sure and understand that we have to be able to address both of them right at the same time. And right now we're really talking about chemical reactions. So listen to your heart. It knows, it knows all things. Listen to your body. It's smarter than you, and listen to your gut. The reality of all this, what you guys call listening to your heart, listening to your gut, listening to your body, it's all listening to your body. It's just what we call, right? Somebody says, listen to it lives in your heart. Your heart does not possess ability to think, but it does have some potential neurons that people are saying there's some connection. It lives in our brain, but because our heart are connected, we can feel that it's happening, that connection. So we may feel it in our heart. Some people feel it in their gut. Some people have that intuition feeling in their gut. Why? Because our brain and our gut is connected. But the reasoning, all of it is actually happening. But it doesn't matter how you explain it, guys. It's not what I'm getting at. Explain it how you want to explain it, or be listening. All right, so areas of needed assessment, right? This is what we want to look at. And guys, if you have any questions that's come up, especially when I start going over symptoms here in a second, I'll cover symptoms and you'll be like, oh my God, this is going on. What does that mean? If you have any specific questions, feel free to type them in either in the chat box on the webinar or in LinkedIn Live, whichever one you're on, and I will cover your questions. But basically, so what we're looking at, we want to be able to assess your blood sugar. We want to be able to assess your stress. We want to be able to assess your hormones. We want to be able to assess your gut health. We want to assess your nutrient balance. Those are kind of the main 5 areas that I spend personally within 10% Fitter, understanding internal health, right? So what is that ultimately getting into? You're going to hear me say things like common does not equal normal, right? So what does that ultimately mean? When we sit and we assess, there's 2 sides to it. One is common within us, and it means it's happening frequently and we get used to it. 2 is common within society, meaning that we see everybody around us dealing with the same issue. So we expect that it to be normal. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, common does not equal normal, and we need to stop doing that as a society. Our common sense is not so common, and what I'm getting at, we're using common sense and okay, because I'm feeling this way and I've been feeling this way and I'm always feeling this way, it's just normal. That's just how it is. Or because everybody around me is experiencing that, it's just normal. That's just how it is. Wrong. Guys, there's an optimal way for a body to feel, and the reality is more of us in society are not feeling optimal than are. And we're talking about it's a big difference. I would say maybe 10% is optimized and 90% is subpar, right? So, of course, what seems normal is how the subpar feels, and those 10% seem the anomaly, right? The superhumans, the dedicated folks. I'll never be that. Excuse my French, guys, but bullshit. You are capable of being every single one of those things. And I'm not coming from this wishy-washy standpoint. Like, I am empowering in a way, but I'm not your, like, emotionally empowering. There is a logical step process to how you can get there. Fix the 5 components we talked about, and you'll be amazed at what you can do. How much your motivation improves, how much your discipline improves, how much your drive improves, how much your, fear and self-confidence, you name it, it's going to get better, and you can be one of those amazing people, but you have to accept that common does not equal normal. So, first things first, we're going to look at blood sugar issues, just some high-level stuff, right? With blood sugar, what you're going to have is cravings. So with cravings, I want you guys to think about it. What's the difference between a craving and being hungry, right? This is something that we mess up all the time, and everybody thinks they're hungry all the time. I'm like, no, you're not hungry. You just ate 2 hours ago, or you just ate an hour ago, and now you're going back to the fridge. It's not hunger. Boredom. Like, some people try to pseudo-explain and say it's boredom eating. What the hell is boredom eating? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's craving. So something that's specific. Like, mind gets a specific thing that it needs to eat. Not just, hey, I gotta eat. That's a craving. That's usually a symptom from the system that something's off. So if you're having cravings for like salty things and crunchy things, typically that means your blood sugar is probably off. Your blood sugar is not being regulated. So when you look on this graph, right, when you have three of these spikes, the green is optimal. You can see in those lines, I'm like pointing at the screen like you can see it. The green is optimal. The green is what you're supposed to do. As you can see, sugar does have spikes around meals, but they're minimal. They come down to neutral, and the body stays pretty even throughout the day. Not these big spikes and drops like you see. And recommended is actually not what's optimal, right? Recommended is about you, but I want to be optimal. I don't want to be good enough in life, especially with my health and my body, because it's the vehicle to everything else. So, right, take a look at those things and understand. If you're having big spikes, big drops in energy throughout the day, that could be a perfect example of why that happens, right? In those peaks, you have great energy. In those valleys, your energy crashes. And in those valleys is when you're going to want to crave those things, because your body wants a simple nutrients, highly processed, preferably, to spike that blood sugar back up, right? So that's a problem. Stress does play a role in cravings as well, but it's a lot to do with blood sugar, because stress hormones regulate blood sugar. So in an indirect pathway, stress is impacted through blood sugar, and we have cravings that way. So being thirsty all the time, that's another thing that represents blood sugar issues. That's a weird one, and I won't be able to explain it in a quick one, but understand that water is used to transfer nutrients, right? So imagine there's a bunch of sugar in your cell, or outside the cell, but the body can't pull it into the cell because your insulin response is bad. So the body will try to use water sometimes to try to transfer nutrients and things like that, and it displaces water, so we want more water to try to get it more in our system to do that more. Fatigue relief eating, right? So we already talked about your blood sugar is crashing out, so your energy is going to be dropping low. As soon as you eat, blood sugar picks up, body feels well. That's not normal, guys, because your body should be able to last in that blood sugar much longer, because you're a fat burner. And this is something I'll talk a lot about in the future, but understand, if you're burning a lot of sugar, you're not burning fat. Your body's not going to usually go and say, okay, if I need immediate energy, I'm going to burn fat. And when your blood sugar is inconsistent, it wants immediate energy all the time. So in the graph, when you see big peaks, drops like that, those people are usually overweight. That's why diabetics are usually overweight. Their body's so dependent on blood sugar for fuel, doesn't really fat very well, and it tends to store fat a lot. And then getting hangry, the Snickers commercial. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you're overseas watching this or in US, I don't know if there's Snickers commercials or overseas, but you see Betsy getting hungry and stuff like that, and something, right? But I'm sure that if you see yourself that way, if your body gets hangry when you haven't had food for a while, that's a symptom that blood sugar is not being regulated right. That there's stress components involved too, sure, but we've gotten used to it. We think that's just the way that it is. There's times in my life that I've gotten hangry, and now with all this stress going on, I'm noticing some of those things. How do I fix it? Increase my fat intake. Now, I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm not talking nutrition. I'm just assessing the starting point, right? So moving into stress. That's the other second big bucket that I see people having issues with, is their stress response, stress management. So the first symptom you're going to see is going to be hard time waking up in the morning, right? I've talked about this many times. If you look at the way we're designed, we're a prehistoric society, right? That was designed to be a hunting and gathering society. You wake up in the morning in your cave, you need a lot of energy. We're designed to be energetic in the morning. Then you go hunt your food, gather your food, come back, recover, relax, do it again the next day. But if you're waking up tired, it means that it's opposite. You're not high when you should be high. You're actually low in that stress response. And that's a symptom that something's going on. It's not necessarily that's going on that moment. Something throughout the day is causing that to happen. Could be lack of sleep, could be who knows. Lots of different reasons, and I'll cover that in stress management in a future workshop. The other thing that we're going to see is of being physically tired but mentally wired, right? Like, think about that for a second. Physically tired but mentally wired. So it's like the body doesn't want to go anywhere. Like, you lay down in bed sometimes and the brain's just like zoom. I'm wide awake. My brain is on. I can't stop thinking, but I'm exhausted physically. That's a big symptom that stress response is not going well. Next one is feeling of being physically tired, but perspire easily. That's the next one. So perspire easily. Remember I told you how water displacement is used for stress and for sugar regulation, things like that. There's another hormone. Most people kind of aware of heard the term cortisol right? It's one of the main stress response hormones that when it gets screwed up, things tend to go. So what happens with hormone called aldosterone. Aldosterone ultimately regulates blood pressure, but it regulates water in our body. And when we perspire easily, that means that we have too much water outside of our cell. So the body's pushing the water outside the cell. It usually increases blood pressure, and that's why highly stressed people have high blood pressure. Because that happens, we perspire a lot more. So really sweaty people, a lot of times, can be explained through stress management. The other cravings that I didn't mention earlier is craving specific to salt. Now we're getting into something that, your body's been under stress for a really long time. This is not something that is brand new, right? So think about in your life when you've been under stress for years. Your body starts to kind of fatigue from it. It can't continue to produce those chemicals to produce that stress response to keep you highly functional, more energetic, and it starts to crash out. Because let it recover, it continues to crash. So water is something that the body needs, obviously, but it can't maintain because that aldosterone starts to go lower that we just talked about. So then you want more salt, you crave more salt to try to maintain more water in your body. So that's one of those symptoms. Lightheaded when rising. Now we're talking about the continuation of a similar symptom, right? So say you stand up too fast and you get lightheaded. That's a problem. Because similarly to how blood pressure was high when there was too much water in the bloodstream, now if there for too long, blood pressure starts to drop, and the next one's going to be blood pressure. But now there's not enough water in the bloodstream because it's being dissipated in other areas. So now that pressure, because there's low volume, can't be maintained. So now when we go to stand up, blood pressure is supposed to rise from when you're sitting down to when you're standing up. But what in reality happens, which is weird, and it's an easy test to do with a blood pressure cuff, but you go from standing up to sitting down to standing up. If down to standing up, if it drops or if it stays the same, typically that's a sign that there is a stress response issue. And that's where I was talking about, difficulty staying asleep is next, right? So if you're one of those people that wakes up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you have a hard time going to sleep, that's a stress problem. There's just something going on with your stress response and you got to fix it. Next thing is high or low blood pressure, right? I mentioned that you've been pressure when we've been stressed a lot, but it hasn't been too long, and then low is when we start to crash out our stress response, and now we're underproducing it, and now we can't displace that water. The next one we're going to talk about, so that's the second area that you need to understand. Now, guys, I understand a lot of the stuff is dry. Now, I want you to also understand that if we charge you legitimate cost of these 25 workshops, you're spending over $10,000. And I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating this. I can find you exact courses that are similar, and you'll spend 10 grand. I'm seeing people commenting because, you know what, health, we want a quick answer. We want microwave, quick fix, give me a 30-pack, or 36-pack abs and let me lose 21 pounds in days. It doesn't work like that, guys. Marketers will sell you that, but that's not health. So unfortunately, I'm going to ask that you guys treat this as you were getting a $10,000 training right now. Absolutely are, and I'm not exaggerating, and I'm giving you everything. So suck it up, Buttercup. Sorry to say that, but sit here and be bored sometimes, because what you'll get from 25 hours is something you'll never understand otherwise, and then you'll conquer your life. So guys, be patient. I know that I'm not the most entertaining person in the world, but hear me out and stick it out and just at least watch the recording. So looking at bloating after meals, right? That's one of the things that can happen, is we can bloat after meals. If it's common, used to it happening all the time, do you think that's a problem? No, but it is. It's just not, you're not listening to your system. You shouldn't be gassy 15 times a day like an average American, right? That's not normal just because it's become common. Heartburn or using antacids. If that's something that you see, starting to happen, you're experiencing heartburn or antacids, that's an issue. Here's a crazy caveat for you guys. One of the biggest misdiagnoses in U.S. at least that I see, and I think that would be across the board, is that we are misdiagnosed with low stomach acid. People are told you need to have more stomach acid, too much stomach acid, the wrong way around. So the people are misdiagnosed with stomach acid, because anybody that gets any sort of sensation in here, they get antacids. I'm like, but sometimes that sensation occurs because food didn't break down in time. It mixed with bile and it's just sitting there, and that's what you're feeling. So the reality is the food didn't break down in time because you have too stomach acid. What is your doctor doing? Prescribing you an antacid. That's why at least 50% that are on antacids stay on antacids. It doesn't actually fix anything. It's creating a bigger problem. Guys, there's a future episode that I'm gonna have actually Virginia with me on, but it's talking about why doctors not always right. Guys, I love doctors, don't get me wrong, but Western medicine doctors have a limited scope. They're there to make you feel better, make you there to improve your symptom, but they're not necessarily to make you optimize. That's what we do. That's what health practitioners do is, optimize your health fully. So heartburn and antacid, the biggest diagnosis. There's an easy thing that you can do. Like, I'll give you guys a tip. Go look HCl enzyme test, gut test. So what it basically explains is you can get enzymes, are basically digestive enzymes that mimic stomach acid to give you additional stomach acid to break down your food better. If you already have too much stomach acid, like many people are diagnosed these days that are on antacids, when you take this pill and you add more in your body, you should get a warming sensation because now there's too much stomach acid. You should feel that warming sensation. But if you don't, think about it. If you already had too much stomach acid, you added more in there, and you don't feel a response, would you think that the problem is too much stomach acid? It's not. So you can do a few of those, and what you do basically then is next time you have a meal, you have 2 of those pills, 3 of those pills, and it usually goes up to 5 to safely because you don't want to have too much of it. It's dangerous. But the point is, it tells you how deficient you are. If you had a warming sensation after 2, okay, a little deficiency. But if it took you all 5 to get there, then most likely you're really deficient, and stomach is a really big area you need to address, right? So the next thing is gassiness, belching, and burping. There's stuff that's going on in our gut, reacting with bacteria. Ultimately, it's a sign of dysbiosis, meaning that in your gut, which I'm going to cover gut health a lot deeper in a future episode, so I'm not going to give you too much right now, but in your gut, you're outnumbered 10 to 1 of foreign cells to your own cells. What? So there's 10 times more foreign organism cells living inside of you than your own cells in your entire body. That is very true, guys. That is your digestive tract. When you lay out your digestive tract, it's about the size of a tennis court, 300 square feet, right? So it's a really complex ecosystem that is very fragile in a way. It's not that fragile, but it's nowadays fragile because we're not prepared. Our system did not adjust to the amount of stress, amount of toxicity, amount of processed foods. So what's the good guys are dying off and the bad guys are thriving. And that's what's happening in the gut. And that's why you take probiotics, that's why you heal your gut and create a better environment. I'll cover that in future. But understand, gassiness, belching, burping, signal, sign. Your body's raising its hands going, hey, listen, I need some help. From there, we get into sensitivities to foods. If you're sensitive to a number of foods, once again, that is saying that most likely there's a intestinal permeability that is broken, right? So it means that your body's protective layer inside the gut, this membrane, is starting to deteriorate, and we're seeping stuff into our bloodstream that's not supposed to be there, and it creates sensitivities and antibody responses, which I'll also cover in a future workshop. Constipation or diarrhea, right? Your poop should be normal. Like, guys, I know we are talking about poop, but guys, I'm a health coach and I'm an internal health coach, so like that's something I talk about regularly. Your poop should stay consistent, meaning that it doesn't change consistency day to day. You have a daily or multi movement, you 1 to 2, no more than that, and it's not, either diarrhea or constipation. If that's happening, once again, your body's raising its hand, but you've gotten used to it and you're not listening. From there, you can go history of antibiotic use, right? If you have a history of antibiotic use, meaning you've been antibiotics a lot, you've had surgeries, things like that, chances are you have a digestive problem because antibiotics, they don't just come in and say, okay, we're only going to kill the bad guys. We're only going to go to war with bad bacteria. We're going to leave the good ones alone. Not what happens. It's like a nuke that goes on in your stomach and everything gets killed off. The good, the bad, whatever. And then it's maybe gets replenished, right? So if the space occupied by good bacteria was easier to regrow bad bacteria, and we didn't provide the right environment, the right support and supplementation, then we may get an overgrowth and we get into that dysbiosis again. So high-fat foods. So now we're getting a little bit into like gallbladder, which also plays a function with it, obviously produces bile. And if you're not producing enough bile, if you're not producing enough that substance that breaks down your food, especially fat, then you're going to have a problem with it. So that people with gallbladder can't really eat fats. It causes them issues. But this is going to be a symptom that your gallbladder may start to have functioning issues. So right now, diarrhea from high-fat foods, you're going to see things like stool tends to be greasy and floats. That's not normal. So once again, that means that the fat is not being digested and broken down in the stomach. That's not a good thing, guys. Some of you may go, oh, great, I'll pass the fat along. No, do not be like that. You need that fat. From there, we're going to get into hormonal health, right? So tendency to be cold, especially in hands and feet, right? Poor circulation, we'll call it that, but this one's just really feeling coldness, right? So this one has a lot to do with thyroid. Thyroid plays a big role in this area. Now, your next one is going to be your difficulty losing weight even through doing things right. right? And this is my client back then, right? I was talking about you're doing all things correctly, everything's on, weight's just not coming off, or it's very slowly coming off. Then most likely there could be a thyroid function issues, right? They're going on, your thyroid is regulating your metabolism properly, right? From there we get into low energy and tired all the time. I'm talking about chronic tired. With stress problems, you typically have spikes. Unless you got Addison's disease and you completely crashed yourself out, you're typically going to have ups and downs, like a mid-afternoon crash or waking up tired in the morning but then be wired at night, right? So that's what happens with stress. With thyroid, when your thyroid goes, it's a little bit different. It's more like a chronic fatigue. You just feel low and down because T4, which is an inactive form of thyroid hormone, into T3 and then uses it for energy and metabolism and all that good stuff. So ultimately, that's just telling you. Here's the trick though, guys, right? You go to a doctor and you say, hey, I heard this weird coach with long hair talk about thyroid could be causing me not lose weight. I'm going to go to a doctor and test it. Well, at a doctor's office, it depends on how good your doctor is and what they're gonna look at. There is typically one marker that a doctor looks at for thyroid, unless they're endocrinologists and more a specialist. They'll just look at thyroid stimulating hormone. When you look on a panel, it'll say TSH. So as an example, TSH optimal is below 2 because it's considered that your thyroid is slow once it's over 2. Doctor will not say low until 4.5, so double the optimal value and still not outside that number. So that's why I'm telling you, doctors will not do this answer because there's 5 different markers. I can't remember, 5 or 6 that can be off with thyroid, but even good doctors will only check 3 or 4. So make sure you're looking at it more comprehensively, and I'll cut when I go over hormones tests that are good for this in the future. So just keep watching the workshops. And guys, the thing is, like, I know some of this stuff is like, oh, it doesn't make sense right now. This is not built to be a standalone workshop. This is workshop number 2 of 25. They're all building on each other, referencing each other. So understand, I need you to watch all of this, and I promise you, you're going to understand how you understood health before. You're going to capture that high view, because then you're going to be able to conquer it. Because you're not going to be looking at a tree going, okay, this standalone tree is my only problem. You look at the whole forest, see how the trees connect, and you understand that the problem is not just localized, it's much greater than that. That's why I'm teaching it this way. Brain fog and mental sluggishness, that's another area you're going to see with thyroid, is typically brain fog, and our cognitive ability goes down. Then from there, we'll see things like decreased libido, right? So sex drive goes down. A lot of times stress does that, but there's other reasons that it happens. But ultimately, stress impacts hormones, and that's what happens. And I'll cover that in the future with hormones as well. Decreased strength and endurance, right? You're just feeling like your muscles are just flat. You know, you're just not as strong, really tired, way faster than you think you should be. And I'm not talking about just natural age progression. I'm talking about it seems just way faster than my peers and things like that. That could be a hormonal imbalance. Decreased enjoyment in life, right? So we've talked about that a little bit. People beat themselves up all the time. They talk about, you know, this, and I'm not a good person. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. I'm not motivated. I'm like, really? Are you sure about all that? Because what I'm seeing is that. Sorry, hold on, guys. Got to turn something off here. Cancel. All right, sorry, I'm back. So ourselves, we're thinking it's our mindset. We're thinking it's our life. We're starting an area that, you know, maybe not necessarily the answer. Where in reality, it's just a hormonal imbalance that is a chemical imbalance, and there's nothing we can do about it internally. It's not a relationship. It's not that. It's not the way our environment is. It's the way they are in that environment that causes the problem. So changing the manipulating the environment is not going to solve it. We have to change our own internal state in order to make that better. That's why I talk about this thing so much, because depression, anxiety, all those things, for the most part, are either A, fixable completely, or B, drastically improved. I'm not promising you can take everybody off medication, but I've done that, got hundreds of people. But what I'm saying is we can lower doses, and we can make it to where it's much easier to control it, to where you're not having to switch doses all the time because your body's actually not changing anything. Males decrease in morning erection, right? Acne or unwanted facial hair, abnormal menstruation in women, right? If your menstruation changes, like heavy and it's light, that's not normal. I don't care if that's been all your life. It just means that all your life you've been suboptimal with your hormones. You know, male decrease in morning erection, that's a big one, guys. If you're not waking up, and you know, I'm sorry to say this, but if you're not, like, you know, hard, I don't know what, sorry guys, I apologize, I don't know how to explain that, it's awkward, but if you not have a hard morning erection, then your testosterone is not where it should be. Bottom line, stress is impacting your life more than you think. But you're like, well, I've been that for 5 years, it's just getting no, because there's people around you that are older than you that waking up with a different, you know, different sensation. So, and common does not equal normal. Pain, cramping, or breast tenderness during menses for women. A red flag, right? So if that's going on, being breast tenderness during menses, even if it's been going on for a long time, that's still a flag, like something's not going right. Significant mood changing during menses, right? This whole concept of, oh, a woman's on her period, so she's supposed to be, mean and all that. No. I know we would hardly get affected with it because they're on point with everything. They're a little bit under stress because their body's actually going through something, but we're noticing a micro increase. And there are some women that have like a bipolar almost. Like as soon as their menses are about to start, it's like a demon wakes up in the morning. And I don't say that in a mean way. I'm saying that they think that it's something wrong with them mentally. It's not. Once again, a physiological response that's driving that outward expression. Then experiencing hot flashes in women, right? Menopause, everybody talks about, oh, menopause happens. What is menopause? Menopause is a hormonal change. We can address, we can make it better, we can not have to have you experience those kind of things. And then mood swings, depression, and night sweats. Another one that's common, night sweats. It doesn't have to be that way, guys. You could do something about it, and we'll cover a lot more detail on what it is. But what I'm getting at is just assessing these things. Vaginal thing, dryness, and that's another one of those uncomfortable conversations that unfortunately I have to have with women from time to time. Luckily, I don't talk about that vaginal thinning with guys. But it's important. Once again, I need to know all this as a health coach. I need to understand all this because the way that I design plans and strategies are completely different based on what we uncover from your symptoms. Sometimes people hold this in and cover their. I don't want to talk about my poop. Or I don't want to talk about my erection. I don't want to talk about my vagina, right? Like those are things I want to discuss with you. I'm going. You don't give me what's going on. We're going on an ineffective path. And the same thing, if you don't understand what's going on, you're going on an effective path. So you're gonna have a homework assignment here, getting closer to an end here. And I'll cover your homework assignment. Nutrient balance. That's the last one, right? So nutrient balance. I see this all the time, guys, and this one is important. I learned about this from a naturopath called his name is Jim Laval, and he is a naturopath, and what captured my mind is he gave a presentation on common medications that we use, right? So what he did is he took one side and he posted a bunch of common problems that were experienced. Then we put the common medications that are used to correct those problems. But then on the other side of those problems, nutrient deficiencies associated with those problems. Hey, Ann, good to see you. With those problems. Hey guys, if you're just joining, what you're seeing right now, if you're obviously just joining from LinkedIn Live, I'm broadcasting a live webinar right now that I'm just also giving live for the sake of more audience. This is part of the 10% fitter 25 workshop release. I'm giving away 25 workshops. Still, it's going to be through March, Thursday through Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Mountain, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But I'm giving you the whole system so that way you guys can educate and benefit from it. But also so that way you see, okay, you know what, for me, great, but I also may want this for my company. And if you want this for your company, that's what Perspective Force does. It's also a marketing play. I'm honest about it. I'm transparent. I'm like, I'll give you stuff, and if you guys want the different I've ever seen, you may need application. You may need something that accountability, right? That's not just knowledge. My opinion and 10% fitter opinion and the Perspective Force opinion, knowledge will always be free. That's not why you get a coach. If you're getting a coach to get knowledge, you should be a lot more educated beforehand. Coach is about applications, about custom tailoring knowledge to your life and not cramming a plan into your life. Same team, same thing for your business. But anyways, so talking about really assessing the starting point right now, we're talking about nutrient balance. Experiencing bleeding gums, easily bruised, and nosebleeds, right? So this one's interesting. Like this one potentially could be talking about iron deficiency. None of this is a diagnosis. Like I can't have you take this questionnaire and say, I was diagnosed with this. No, this is just a questionnaire. It's meant to kind of point you in the right direction and say, we need to investigate this area a lot deeper. And then we can do additional assessments, or be, going to an MD and doing a blood test, or doing a naturopathic assessment because an MD is not going to do it. I'm going to show a lot of that presentations, all the different tests available. But if you're missing that, could be an iron deficiency, right? You're bruised easily, you get nosebleeds, your body's just not, healing properly. And interesting about iron deficiency is going to talk about shortness of breath here in a second as well. And a lot of times I see people get really out of breath. I had this one client who was getting super out of breath and sore. She was like 6 years ago. And we thought we looked at everything. I mean, I couldn't figure out. I was pretty well versed in this kind of point. So I was really breaking my head going like, why does this client keep getting so sore and so out of breath all the time? Finally, we figured out it was iron. She was deficient in iron, but connect the dots. Why would somebody be getting out of breath if they're iron deficiency? I understand bruising, I understand those kind of things, but if they're not able to get good oxygen, it's because the way your body produces energy, it needs an iron molecule to carry an electron at the end and to pass an oxygen molecule over. Basically, it's just how it works. And your body, it will keep asking for oxygen because it doesn't have the iron to bind it and move it on. So without that iron, we keep asking more oxygen, getting out of breath, but it's not necessarily producing more energy because we're dealing with that iron. So increasing iron, we get less out of breath. From there, talking about muscle fatigue and after exercise, I already mentioned that, right? What's normal, right? DOMS. DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness, right? And that's what you'll hear coaches, trainers, practitioners talk about, where you're typically not sore immediately post-workout. Usually, if you're just starting out, it's not the first day that's the worst, it's the second day. And third day, it's supposed to clear out and you're pretty much fine. Now, when you're first starting out, maybe 3 days. But if you're sore for 4 or 5 days, or if you've been working out and you keep being sore for 3 days, red flag, body's going, hey buddy, something's not right. Something's not healing in my system. Nutrients to rebuild. Whatever it may be, there's issues and you need to address them. From there, get into tingling to hands and feet or cracks in the corner of the mouth, right? So once again, it's a very easy symptom to see. My body's not able to repair itself. My body's not able to function how it should. There's nutrients missing. Here's the cool thing, guys. Not a cool thing. It's cool, but it's interesting to understand. Most people tell you are what you eat. People are going, I don't have nutrient deficiency. I eat my kale salad every day. I eat my multivitamins. I eat perfect. Cool. Because you believe that you are what you eat. That's not the case. You are what you absorb. I'm going to say that again, guys. You are what you absorb. So you can put whatever you want in your body, but if your gut health isn't good, one of my clients I'm working with right now, she's struggling with absorption. So we're really focused on digestive health and correcting that. We can really worry about the other stuff, because we're going to get very minimal results if we don't fix that digestive health. So understand that that's a nutrient problem and that you are what you eat, or what you absorb. Breast legs or muscle cramping, twitching. I get this one. My wife gets mad sometimes. Like I'll lay in bed and I rub my feet. So like you hear that dry kind of rubbing sound. That's when I'm deficient in magnesium. Magnesium 1. So if you get like muscle twitches, like an eyebrow twitches, sometimes like a forearm twitches, whatever it may be, that's a sign that magnesium is probably deficient. Supplementation in detail. I'm just giving you some high level view right now. Experience shortness of breath. So shortness of breath, we already covered that with iron, right? So deficiency, something's not being passed on. We're not able to create energy. We keep asking for more oxygen, even though we're not able to create the energy that we need. Poor circulation, right? So a little bit different from thyroid, because thyroid causes some of that, coldness and stuff. Poor circulation ultimately has a lot to do with magnesium as well. When our body's tense and tight because we're low in magnesium, it's not able to well. So that's where we get that circulation. We just feel tight, right? So magnesium helps with that. Experiencing a rapid heartbeat. Heart is a muscle, right? So the same way we talk about just a not relaxed heart, it's just how it feels. When magnesium is low, it's going to be tense. There's other reasons that it can happen. Magnesium is a big one. If you noticed, I mentioned magnesium quite a few times. If you don't take magnesium, I don't need you to do a test. I don't need you to do anything, because 85% of America is deficient in magnesium, and we're just poor at absorbing it too. So if you're going to do magnesium, do a magnesium with ATE ending, not IDE. IDE is poor absorption. It's cheap, what you find in grocery stores because it's cheap to produce, but your body absorb it. It makes you go to the bathroom all the time. ATE is a little bit better. So focus on that a little bit more. That's really it for nutrient status, high level view. So your homework. All these questions you just seen, or most of them, or more than you just, I'm going to send you, if you're part of this workshop, guys, you have to go register. If you need to go right now to www.perspectiveforce.com, Prospective Force, I can't spell, prospectiveforce.com /10% fitter, spell it out, percent. If you go there, you register, you'll be getting notifications of upcoming workshops, but you also get the physiology assessment I'll send to but you'll take the assessment, you'll go through it, and you'll score yourself, and you'll identify based on your score what areas and then you'll know where your starting point needs to be much more focused in versus somewhere else. So that's homework number one. And homework number two, if symptomatic, begin to journal about your state of being. So in yesterday's homework, we talked about your journal. I discussed how you need to have a forward outlook journal, have a present outlook awareness journal, and more a reflective journal. So not necessarily three different journals, but three different entries can be at the same time, different times, but three components to that. And this can be present state as an example. You're just keeping track of how your symptoms are experienced in present state, right? So you're paying attention to it, and all it does, it'll create data. Data is amazing, guys. There's a reason why, there's companies like Facebook who make way more money through their data than they do anything else, right? So data is so vital. Your data to your body is vital, and you need to pay attention to it and get it that way. So that's really it, guys. That's really all I have for you today. I don't see no questions popping up. Feel free to always fire questions away. But because I don't have anything, we can just kind of move on. Tomorrow, same time, same place. If you don't go through the program, but you get notified when I do lives. As you can tell, I don't sell in lives. I don't sell in my training. I give away knowledge as much as I can. I'd like to get questions, and then I can be more effective. Tomorrow, I'm gonna cover relationship with food. So same time at 9:30 Mountain, 11:30 Eastern. I'm gonna dive into understanding your relationship with food, because once again, people try to eat right, they try to eat better, but in the reality, they're psychologically have a bad connection with food. So instead of, we talked about results pyramid, right? Their belief system and their experiences are driving their actions, and they're driving their result. So what do people normally do? Instead of, they want to differ. But the problem is at the belief, at the experience, the relationship with food is broken, so we can't get better until we fix that. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. And then Sunday is the movement component. Sunday, I'm going to dive into stability, mobility, and flexibility. And that's a little bit of exercise stuff. I'm going to cover to you some stretching, some mobility drills, some stability exercises, and really explain the difference between all of them and why they're important. So how this is structured. On Thursdays is component number one, and guys, these are in order of priority. Mind is first. Mindset and just mental health, right? Mental health and our chemical brain neurotransmitter and things like that. On Fridays, it's gonna be internal health, which we covered today, right? And next week there's be a different component, more education, further deeper diving in. On Saturdays, I'm gonna get into nourishment. Now, I'm not saying diet. If you ever slip up and say the word diet, it's not. I always mean nourishment. I don't diet. I don't diet with my clients. I don't believe in diet. I believe in shifting the way that they eat, their lifestyle, to optimize their body. But it's also supplementation. So it all kind of goes under that umbrella. And then on Sundays, our movement. Notice once again, what did I say? Did I say exercise? I didn't say exercise. I said movement, because you don't need to be in the gym and lifting weights and all that stuff. There's ways to custom tailor all these things to you that makes you feel good, makes you perform well, and makes you be consistent because you're enjoying the journey, you're enjoying the process. So those are the ways that it's going to be broken down. Like I said, if you haven't registered yet, register, because then you get the recordings. Otherwise, you just catch it LinkedIn Live, and that's it. Recordings, you'll get the PDFs, all that stuff that comes with it. But thank you so much, guys. It's once again a pleasure. Looks like we went for about 50 minutes today. Tomorrow might be a little bit about 50 minutes to an hour. I'm planning these for an hour, but I want you guys asking questions. I want you to feel free to fire away questions that are specific to you. Why? Because there's other people out there that may have the same concerns. They're just afraid to ask. So if you feel confident to fire away a question and put yourself on the spot, do those kind of things. Not at the end of the show once I'm wrapping up because I'm finished, but just do it in the beginning. Catch it in the beginning. I'll slide through at the end and catch them all there. But also, I'd love to get you on the webinars, right? Because on the webinars, I can actually pull you into the screen and we can have a conversation, live talk, and make it more entertaining and engaging. So once again, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. You guys have a great day.